Are you ready to know what you don't know about social media? Well, then you're in the right place. This is the Seb Rust Show on Social Buzz on Air. Social Media Radio. Bringing you tips, tricks, tools, and extreme value. Broadcasting from our studio in Miami. And now, here's your host, Sebastian Rust.
What is happening, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to another episode of the Seb Rust Show here on Social Buzz on Air. I'm your host, as always, Sebastian Rusk. So great to be with you. My guest today, a dear friend, a peer within the social media space, the one and only Mr. Brian Fanzo, aka iSocial Fans Online. So make sure you give him a follow. Hope you enjoy the episode. Here we go. Brian Fanzo, what's good, my man?
Oh, hanging out, my friend. I tell you what, the pre-show that we just had like offline, man, people would pay lots of money to have that conversation. So I'm excited to get on here now live and talk a little bit for those that don't have the luxury of being the fly on the wall for the green room. We just had a great conversation.
If these walls could talk, it's kind of like the green room talks before we get out there on stage and crush it, which you have been doing a lot of. Mr. 64 gigs in 2018. Come on now.
Thank you, man. Yeah, it's been a heck of a ride. I tell you what, it's from 2015, 10% of my business revenue was speaking to now 90% of my speaking revenue. My business revenue is speaking. It's been a fun flip. I can tell you, there's lots of craziness, lots of hard things, but 2018 was good to me. But I got bigger plans for 2019.
Oh, you and me both, brother. So for those of us that are tuning in that have absolutely no idea who Brian Fanzo is, let's just back up a little bit. You and I met back in, I think it was 2015, maybe 2014. Back in,
yeah, I think it's 2014.
2014 in Orlando at Social Fresh. Yep. And clicked instantly because, you know, again, you are my people, I am your people, etc. We spoke the same language here, and we've been able to stay in touch. And, you know, I always, look at relationships like you and I have where you're not local here in South Florida, and I don't always see you, but we're always supporting each other in some form or fashion through a like, through a share, through a recommendation. If someone calls me and needs a speaker, you're at the top of my list. So it's been fun to be on the journey with you. But let's help everybody understand, how did all this start? Where did you get your start in the tech space, and how did it evolve into a change evangelist and now, in demand keynote speaker?
So weirdly, most people associate me with marketing or social media, but I'm a computer science major. Graduated college, actually couldn't get a job in computer science, so I worked at UPS. I wore the nice short brown shorts and delivered packages for about a year, and then I took an entry-level help desk job in cybersecurity for the U.S. government, based out of the Pentagon, and weirdly enough, I kind of segued that into a training job where I started training people on cybersecurity tools, training active duty military. And then I was able to grow that team. I grew it. We only did, when I became a trainer, we had one course a month, every month. I was actually able to grow that to 4 courses a week, every week. We had 32 people on my team, traveled around the world to every U.S. military base. So I did 3 trips to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. And, every military base outside the U.S., I was training military and government on cybersecurity tools. And I did it for 9 years. So, anyone that says millennials jump around, my first real job was, I did 9 years government cybersecurity. And really what my job was to, what I figured out what I was really good at, which is how it kind of segues to where I'm at now, is I'm a computer science major. I'm a geek. I love to code. That's not like my true passion. Like I love, talking and relating stuff to management. And what I realized was I'm really good at talking to geeks as well as clueless managers, right? And no offense to any clueless manager that's listening. And so what I always said is I translate the geek speak forward and backwards. So I can tell management what the tech people are doing. I can tell the tech people what the managers want. And that's really what I fell in love with. And so I decided after 9 years, there was this like weird world of I either stay in this cybersecurity government for the rest of my life, or I jump out and try to make a bigger impact. And so I did that, jumped out with really no security net, went to work for a data center company out of Phoenix, Arizona, and I became a technology evangelist, which really was my dream job. I modeled it after Guy Kawasaki and Robert Scoble. On really, my job was to help relate what was going on with our customers, our clients, and our employees back to product and management. So I had no real KPIs. I reported to the CEO. I had a dotted line to the CMO, a dotted line to the CIO. And I just fell in love with this ability to help people embrace change, to help people use technology when it makes sense, but also kind of help generations kind of work together. And then about 4.5 years ago, I decided to take the leap into entrepreneurship, which hands down, without question, the hardest job I've had of all of these jobs is the entrepreneur side of the house. And what I realized, I did content, both of us do podcasts. I had live video. I ran our Twitter chat show. And what I kind of figured out throughout this whole thing is I was on stage at the Pentagon. I was on stage in front of these classrooms. And I really love, like, the most zen place in the world for me is in front of a crowd, just like yourself. And so I made the kind of the conscious effort to build a community, not really a following on social. And when people tell me to do something or say it can't be done, I try to do the opposite. And I really went hard and said, I'm going to build a community that loves me, that supports me, that does the sales and marketing for me as a speaker. And the results in 2018 are kind of proof of that work. But it's been a hell of a ride. I'm not your average marketer or fan of social media, but I do believe in the power of video, the power of social media, and ultimately the power of telling your story. And that's where I'm at now. I'm going to release a book this year, which will be my first book, which has taken me 3 years to actually publish. So actually chapter 1 is the struggle that I've gone through to write a book. And it shows how relatable it is, because the book has been my scary thing. For many other people, it could be a podcast, it could be video, it could be just posting on social media as a whole. And then, kind of riding this ride as we go. But I love the journey. I'm a dad of 3 girls, so that's my favorite job of all the jobs I have. But I do love what I do right now. And big goals this year, I think 100 keynotes in 2020 would be the ultimate goal for me. And I'm setting my eyes on that for next year.
Let's go. You got a title for the book yet?
Press the damn button.
I was about to say, please tell me it's Press the Damn Button.
Yes, sir.
I love it. So that's exciting stuff. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm asked a lot, what would I tell my 21-year-old or 18-year-old self? What is the number one bit of advice I would give that 18-year-old Sebastian? And it's real simple. It takes longer than you think.
That's great. That's a good one.
That's just it. I mean, we're going into our 9th year with Social Buzz TV, and I built this thing from nothing. And as you know, when you create something from nothing, you're extremely proud of it. I mean, I've proved I learned to live with nothing. I took a bus around town. I threw my skateboard in the bushes. I played the part until I became the part. I sold the dream and just told people this is what the fuck is going to happen, and it happened. And again, I don't know about you. I feel like I'm just getting started. Not like the nuances of what the hell's going on, but I feel like, whoa, if I've been this far, let's go. And just like you said, dude, I mean, I think a lot of us have caught a lot of momentum going into 2019 to think, this is the breakout year. And and I have this conversation a lot with a lot of our peers, which is I am a firm believer that there's different sides of the influencer equation. You've got these YouTubers and these Instagrammers and Jake Pauls, and I don't even know what the fuck these guys do to create content and get a gazillion views. I try to ask my millennial teenager, and she's like, "Oh, Dad, no one likes them anyway." And then you've got the influencers, like the real people that are actually doing shit that matters, like the Gary V's and Lewis Howes and people that we've watched come up while we've been establishing our brand. I believe there is a new breed, there is a new phase of those individuals coming up. Grant's in the mix too. Grant Cardone's in the mix too. But Gary and Lewis, these guys have made it. Like they're there and they continue to grow and they have made it. I wouldn't consider myself making it by any means at all yet, but I'm definitely on the journey of being able to do it. But I believe that's and it's funny. I've got a phenomenal relationship with Gary. Unfortunately, the guy is busier than a one-legged man in an ass-kicking contest. But to be able to be on the journey with him for the past 9 years. I've read his first book, Crush It. My antennas went up and I executed on that blueprint, interviewed him a year later, stayed in touch with them. And we're now in talks of me emceeing his live events. And I'm like,
nice.
What?
Yeah. So, he had a big impact on me too. Jab, 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 right hook changed everything for me. I thought marketing was about sales enablement, fluffy bullshit that nobody gave a crap about. And I hated that stuff. And I read jab, 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 right hook. And I was like, oh crap, this is my calling. And so, yeah, I owe a lot in that space as well to him.
Yeah, it's great to see. He just continues to shine. And again, the biggest thing I've learned is, he's always taught me from day one, Sebastian, you take time for everyone. I've seen him at events. In fact, when I do see him this day and age, it's usually in a green room in another city, not elsewhere. But he always takes time. They're always willing to give him a few security people, and he says, "I don't want him. I want to be mobbed." And you stay humble and you stay committed to people, and you understand that you didn't build this thing; the people around you built this thing. And it's just been phenomenal advice. But I really think there's a new breed on the rise. I mean, we're part of that whole process on here. There's been a lot that have fallen off that magic carpet too. And we know we're a real tight community, even though we're all spread out all over the world and all over the place. We're a real tight community from, Mike Stelter, social media marketing world to you, of which I've never been to. I've never been to. All my friends go every single year. I think it's probably because TNC was so close to it each and every year. But it's been fun to watch the entire community grow and see where, what's happening next and where it's at. Content wise, you're a storyteller. I'm a storyteller. Like what is your main priority of the content you create, being able to set the stage for the story you want to tell? You think that's really what the core is? Because, coming up with another course or, pitch this and pitch that and push this, I just don't think there's any value. I think back to Gary's strategy of just jab, jab, jab. I mean, just give every day. Guys worth 500 million, still cranking out a daily episode that's 15 minutes long. He's got a team of 23 that help out with Team Gary V. But still, the point is, content's where we're at. I think storytelling is going to take us well into the future.
Yeah, and the crazy part about that, the people that are selling, pushing courses, doing all of that kind of selling from stages, that's still working today. I believe the long end of that is we're almost to the point where that's going to stop working, right? It is the people that relate. It's the people
unless you're Tony Robbins.
Yeah. But I think there's this weird element of and to your point about there's an element where you had the early adopters, you had the people that got into the internet and just understood it, crushed it, took advantage of what there was. There's also a wave of people that sold unicorns, rainbows, and bullshit.
Yeah.
And they were really successful for the first 7-8 years of social media. Now they're getting exposed. Now you realize where did that person go? Oh, they didn't really know anything. They weren't really willing to work hard. They didn't really care about their audience. They were able to sell an illusion of something, especially in social media. There was really no bar of entry. You could make up your own ROI. You could tell a client you need 4 more years running their social media before they'll get certain followers. Then you'll just go buy the followers. So there's this weird space, I think, that has created kind of a gap right now, right? And I would argue without hesitation, and you both of us are good friends with Ted Rubin as well, who's always said return on relationships. We're in this weird spot where, yes, there's celebrity overnights that are like the people that are on the YouTubes and that side, but true influence over a long period of time right now is made up of people that know their shit, willing to hustle, but they have to be good people. Because the way that this space has really worked, in my opinion, is there are some people that have pushed their way to the top and they weren't really good people, but they were early adopters and they got in there and they crushed it, and good for them. But there was a gap there where people that didn't know anything and really weren't good people have now got exposed, and now there's this weird layer of trust. And so I would argue for anyone, you said about telling your internal self or your 20-year-old self, for me, self-awareness is one of the things that I was never, I always thought I knew myself, but I didn't invest in myself, getting better. You did that a lot, I know, last year. But I think we're in this weird space, or it's a good space, where I think people doing good stuff are gonna rise. The tide's gonna rise. And yes, the people that are doing bad stuff, it still works right now. People that are selling really crappy courses just to upsell you into another course, just hopefully so that you're in their email list so you can spam you for all that. All that stuff's still working and existing right now, but they're not gonna be around in 2030, right? And I look at that. I mean, one of the sticky notes you mentioned, Gary V. I mean, one of the sticky notes I've always had on my desk since forever was that Gary launched Wine Library TV at 35 years old, right? He did it at 35 years old. So I don't ever believe that we're too late to the game, that you're getting too old. I think there's a space now where transparency and live video and really true influence. We don't trust brands. We don't trust logos. We trust people. And this next couple years is going to be about what people stand out as trustworthy. And it's not because you can be a jackass on YouTube. It's because you could create entertaining content, you can create educational content, inspirational content, motivational content, but more so than anything else, I mean, I'm all in on the value of content, and I believe every person has a story to tell. Every person has a story to tell. The question becomes, are you willing to tell it? Are you willing to be vulnerable? Do you know where to start to tell your story? And then ultimately, are you willing to ride the ride that is your story? And that's part of the adventure. If you had asked me 4 years ago if I was willing to ride this ride, I'm not sure if I would have known what it was going to look like. But I'm damn glad I strapped my seatbelt in and have been along on this ride.
Yeah, I heard someone say the other day, and I'm completely in agreement with you on that. But don't be surprised that how you get there. Don't be surprised when you're finally there and you look back and go, I cut a deal with Ryan Seacrest. My digital content has become content with major networks. I'm booked with a large brand for 14 keynotes through 2030. Whoa, we're here. And it happened because Fanzo and I met somebody in the green room when we were in Missouri at that one event with 300 people.
Yep. I closed my biggest contract of this year so far. I closed a week and a half ago, and it was for someone I worked with in 2014 that they didn't pay me to do something. I volunteered to do it, and then I stayed an extra day with them. They didn't have a budget from 2014. All of a sudden, 2018, she pinged me. 2019, we're locking in a full year deal, and it was literally a going out of your way in 2014. And I had no envision, stayed friends, stayed connected. So yeah, I can tell you, so much of my success last year had to do with 2014, 2015, building relationships, building trust, creating content, celebrating others, and now it's paying off. You never know. It's amazing if you reverse engineer all of your success or all of the gigs you get or all of the clients you have. It's amazing how many things go back to something that you did little above and beyond, or that time you sat in the front row of someone else's talk, or the time you bought someone's book and just shared it on your social, not because they told you, not because they gave you the book for free, but because you cared about them as a person. And man, I think this is the best. This is the best time to be in business, when being a good person pays off. But the thing about it is you have to ride it, because if you don't ride it and you give up, I think that's so, and I can tell you 2017 was my worst year ever. And since I graduated college, 2017 was my worst year. I got divorced in 2016. 2017 was just kind of fell apart. My business fell apart. A lot of things that I was doing just weren't matching up. And I had every reason to pull the plug and go back into the real world workplace and change my tune. But I kind of kept the goal of my vision of success, and damn, am I glad I did it. But anyone that's out there that's struggling right now, I'm with you. It's hard. Failure sucks. The tough times seem to go longer than you ever imagined. But one of my goals 2019 is to enjoy the success more than I've ever have before. So I'm staying over longer weekends. I'm willing to go on like the tour of the local city that I'm in. I'm going to bring friends along with me. I think, this journey is amazing, and I give Gary Vaynerchuk all kinds of love and credit, but I don't want Gary's life, right? I want the life that says I work my ass off, I do some great things, but I enjoy the hell out of it, traveling and living it up. And I think for everyone that's out there, as long as you know what your success is, it keeps you, on that path to knock it out.
Yeah, it really does. It really does. And it affords us, the opportunity. That's the beautiful part about the speaking business, is that it takes you to awesome places. And you've always, I love to, I've done that since day one, as long as it was feasible and time, my schedule allowed, to be able to say, hey, my favorite's San Diego, because I can always go up to Orange County and spend a week.
Love San Diego.
Old stomping grounds, and, go see some old friends and hang out. But it really is to afford the freedom to be able to go and do that. But, again, back to Gary, he's always said authenticity trumps likability.
Yep.
And there are so many inauthentic, fake fronted individuals, unfortunately, in our community. We run into them. We know them. There's been a few
people that are listening to this show right now, you look up to.
Right.
They're fake, full of shit assholes.
Yes, exactly. And there's been individuals that I've tried to help.
Yep.
That it falls on deaf ears, that they have all the information figured out, and then you run into them in real life and they think you're all you've done is try to help. And it is unfortunate. But, like Gary continues to say, the internet's just exposing us all. That's all. It is. It's going to unfold the whole story of how it all goes, where it's all. And that's what everybody's paranoid. I mean, resources I have in Hollywood are going, everyone's sitting on edge going, who's next?
Yep.
Because the internet is literally exposing us all. So again, you keep your nose clean. Like my grandmother always used to say, you don't have to worry about this. You're always doing the right thing. You never have to worry about doing the wrong thing.
That's true.
So 2019 is obviously off to a great start for you. You had a phenomenal 2018, the speaking business. Let's dive into that for a minute, because I get asked a lot, how do you do that? Because I don't know I want to be a professional speaker. And I tell my immediate response is, me too.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
how do I get booked to speak? And I said, you need to speak.
Yep.
Well, what does that
Speaking
mean? I go, speak, baby. Listen, you want to get booked to speak more? Speak more. Well, what does that mean? That means I don't care if it's an audience of 2 and 3 stuffed animals. The answer is yes. Yep. Rotary clubs, chambers, events, local events, client events, in front of Facebook Live. That's what I'm doing this year. Yep. And you make it known right here on this episode. I'm going to take my backdrop right here, and I'm going to somehow turn this into like a stage environment. And I'm going to deliver keynotes on Facebook Live. Why? Because it's going to sharpen my game. And it's going to allow me to develop content. And who the hell knows who's going to see it? You know, I know you agree with this. LinkedIn's wide open right now for video. For sure. Wide open on here. So I'm just going to go and start rapping what I would normally do on stage on Facebook Live and start sharing my message from there. I'm that fired up about getting my message out of you can build a brand from nothing. And there's never been an easier time to do it than right now with all the technology. It's the most exciting time to ever be alive. Technology is moving so fast, but are you moving with it is the question, you know? Yeah. So the speaking business, let's chat about that for a second. You and I are both involved with NSA. I got involved back in, I think it was 2014, 2015. And the first thing I thought when I got there was in Philadelphia that year was I thought, wow, this is a room full of 2,500 egos. Holy cow. How am I going to be able to navigate and swim through this pool? Because, you know, I can see it now. And I was a little presumptive. I jumped to a few conclusions, but all in all, I was somewhat accurate. Yep. I thought, you know, every conversation I'm going to have is going to start with, well, the best thing I like about my keynote is, you know, and again, it's an older generation within NSA. It's people that have been speaking since God spoke to Moses. I mean, okay, maybe not that long ago, but that have been speaking since you and I have been knee high to a Girl Scout. But when I realized that, I thought, well, it's an older crowd, older crew. Like they've been around for a while, doing this a lot longer. What a great opportunity to learn. Number one. Number two, I immediately thought, what do I have that they don't have? And I'm like, this whole social media thingy. The whole books thingy. So that's how I was able to really start to develop relationships with a lot of speakers where I'm like, hey, listen, I'm an MC and speaker. I've been doing it for like 4 or 5 years off and on. I want to do it all the time. Maybe I can learn from you. When I'm not on stage, I'm helping brands figure out their social strategy. Oh, I need to know how to use Twitter. And immediately started to develop these relationships on here. How did things start with you when you first had, let's back up. How'd you get tipped off to NSA and how did you get involved?
So yeah, you know, I think the interesting thing for me, I wish Scott Stratton said at 14 years old, he saw Les Brown on TV and realized that professional speaking was a job, and he's wanted to do that since he was 14. I wish I had that, right? Like I always knew that I loved talking. I wanted to be a SportsCenter anchor. Then I realized you need to know journalism to be on TV on SportsCenter, and I was like, oh, I'm not good at journalism. My English, my grammar isn't the best ever. And so for me, weirdly, like, I started speaking at the U.S. government, at the Pentagon. Every quarter, I would speak to generals and I would give them an update on the state of the union of where we were with our contracts, also where I thought things were going, how they could relate with younger generations that were coming up, and so on. But weirdly enough, like I've actually done all three, right? So I worked in the government, spoke internally. I went and worked at a data center company. I became the face of the data center company. The CEO, one of the brightest people I've ever known in my entire life, wasn't super into the speaking or like playing the game. So he allowed me to be the face of that company. So we would sponsor an event. They would put me on the stage as the sponsored speaker. And then I left that one and I went on my own. And I couldn't get on a side stage of a side stage of a side stage because not only was I not sponsored, but I didn't have like the book or the resume or the celebrity status or the crazy thing. So I kind of had to rebuild from scratch. And I think when I look at it, you know, what starts to work really well you need to speak a lot, right? First you have to have something to say. Because there's lots of people that are speakers that can talk about a topic, but you have to have something to say that is relatable, that is that moves an audience. I don't care which way it moves them. It moves them to uninstall, reinstall, moves them to rethink or have a new idea. But you have to move them. But you also need people that are willing to go bat for you, right? Testimonials, people that are saying, I saw you. For me, Twitter became that. So I had a lot of people that would start posting and saying, Brian, I listened to this episode or I saw you speak here and it changed my business. Hey, Brian, I did this, I changed this. And I started to get that kind of momentum. I'm not one, I have no ego. I'm a big believer in like, giving first. I think that's that Gary side. And I started speaking at a lot of events and really giving my all. If it was a paid event or a free event, you got the same Brian Fanzo, right? And what I started to realize was, if I don't have all the other components, what can I do? And this is kind of my spiel. When I'm on a sales call, I tell people that, I don't have the celebrity status or the reputation to sell tickets for the event, but I can promise you, when people come to my session, I'll sell tickets for next year's event, because they'll leave my session inspired, motivated, and telling their friends about it.
Yeah.
And that's my differential, right? So that's where I presented myself. I also leverage the things that I do better than most speakers. I'm really good at creating content on the fly. So I create content when I'm at the event. I include that in my package. Everyone that hires me full fee, they get 2 videos beforehand to use on Facebook ads, Instagram ads. They get a live video when I land at the event. They get tweets during the event. I sit in other people's sessions. I promise to be there for all 8 hours of the event, not just the hour I'm speaking. And these are all ways that I knew I could add value, that I would enjoy, and it would separate me. And then when it came down to it, you have to not suck on stage, right? Like that's part of the ingredients. But there's also an element of, some of the hardest pieces of the speaking business that I've had to learn are the things that have nothing to do with the stage and nothing to do with the event, right? Understanding, how to build trust and rapport, during the pre-call, when people are, kind of going through the process, how to sell yourself, how to get future gigs. I mean, one of the things I always tell people is this business is really hard because you're always in business development mode, because very few times do events hire you back year after year.
Yeah.
So each year, like as great as my 2018 was, I will probably, of the 48 gigs that were paid for last year, I would say four are gonna have some kind of paid plan with me in 2019. Think about that. I mean, I'm pretty much starting, as great as it was, kind of almost starting off from scratch. So you have to use those events to build momentum. Logos are great. You also, I think in the day and age we're living in right now, speaking is, a lot about what you have to say, a lot about what you do, but it's a lot about your reputation. I would say my leads come in. I don't apply for speaking gigs. I don't have a bureau that works for me at the moment. My speaking gigs through my content. My podcasts are developed very much so people understand my thought leadership. I'm super active on LinkedIn and engaged. And I would say, well over 60% of the people that are hiring me are coming from my content, or someone that listens to my content has advocated for me. And the other 40% are from people that have seen me, or friends or fellow speakers that say this guy kicks ass. And I think those are all things you have to kind of learn. And I also think, for everyone that's out there was an Inc. article just this week that said public speaking is, I think it was Warren Buffett said, public speaking is a necessary skill set for anyone who has a dream of being a manager or above, right? And I think public speaking, one of these things you have to realize is that conveying your message today, it's great to be smart, but in this day and age right now, no one cares that you're smart. We care about how good are you at sharing that with other people. And I think as a speaker, that's our bread and butter, right? Like that's the cream. But even if you're not into speaking, I think investing in how you communicate and having a platform, like, your podcast, podcasts are my thing. Like, I freaking love podcasts. I mean, if you don't have a podcast, you need to think about either sponsoring one, co-hosting one, launching your own, right? Like that's where I host 2 of them. Now I'll have 3 by the end of this year. And I think for me, that's my vehicle, but I also create some video content, and I also blog on my website. So I think, you have to get your story out there. I think, as I said at the start of this, I think everyone has a story to tell. The problem is, in this crazy, noisy digital world, the best way to get it told is through content and relationships. And that's a hell of a lot of work.
It is. I saw that quote yesterday that said most people don't recognize opportunity because it shows up, or hard work because it shows up in overalls.
Disguised as hard work.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and another Garyism, which was, everybody wants it. Nobody wants to work for it.
Yep.
Let's talk about personal brands for a second here. Segueing into speaking stuff, and congrats on your on figuring out this speaking game here, and it's going to be fun to watch the journey continue and unfold. It's my belief that I'll be emceeing the events that you're keynoting, and that's just how we're going to roll.
Oh, yes.
Okay?
Do it.
So let's go. Personal branding. I read a quote. Gary's been putting these cartoons up lately, which are really cool, actually.
Yeah, really cool.
Comics. But the one he put up today was specifically about personal branding. And it said, "Ugh, I just want to go home and play the clarinet." 1:30 in the afternoon by Krusty the Krab. Yo, Don't do something you hate. Ask yourself what you want to do for the rest of your life and do that. Gary V. The ultimate ROI is happiness, not money. That was not the one. That wasn't the one, but that one was good too. Hold on a second here. It was so good. Anyway, I can't find it now, but it talked about. He posted on LinkedIn, and it was about, hey, you need to build your personal brand. And someone's like, isn't that kind of douchey to do that? Like, no. Building your personal brand is like your online business card. It's like your credibility factor. It's like your I forget what it is. I'm gonna have to pull it up and share it in the show notes later on. But it talked about like the reason you want it, because I was thinking about that later. I'm like, yeah, personal brand. He talks a lot about like the lifeblood of like staying alive as an entrepreneur is having a personal brand. But why do you want to do that? It's your credibility. Really, it's not about the content. It's the fact that people go, this guy's brand is something that I know, like, and trust.
And it's your first impression. It's your most recent impression. It's your ability to stay top of mind, not get forgotten, right? And I think weirdly enough, the people who have poo-pooed personal branding as a whole, in my opinion, come from two camps. One, that they already had a strong foundation and they didn't want people to kind of compete with them in a world where they had already done all that work and like digital was bringing us all back down to a level. And the second people are the crazy enough people that say, build relationships, be engaged, everything's done through your network. Well, guess what? Your network in 2019 and beyond is your personal brand, right? And I think it's amazing where we've gone. And I would say it doesn't matter. I mean, I was on a dating podcast the other day and I was like, your first impression when you're dating has to do with your personal brand, right? When someone Googles your name, what the hell is the first result when someone Googles your name? If someone's working for you, a client, I can tell you, if I meet somebody in person and someone's like, I'm at an event and someone's like, hey, I'm gonna go get such and such and bring them over. I open up LinkedIn and type in their name and I scan their profile before they even walk over and meet me in person, right? Like and that's why I believe everybody has to invest in their first impression. Sadly, we still think of that as the clothing we're wearing. I would argue it's the personal brand that you have.
Oh, 100%. I found the comic here too. It said, Gary, isn't personal brand a douchery word? Gary, what? No, farthest thing from it, my friend. Personal brand is just another word for reputation, and your reputation in perpetuity is the foundation of your career. I was like, whoa.
Yeah, I love that.
Bam. And if you're listening to the podcast right now and you're like, whoa, I want to see that, I'm going to include the link on Gary's LinkedIn so you can check out that meme. Definitely worth sharing on here. But I thought that was some interesting perspective, because I'm always preaching the build a brand gospel. But man, oh man, that is so true and so accurate on there. I mean, personal branding is, it's just what we do. I talk to, the trainers at the gym every day about it. And I'm like, hey, when are you going to start your personal? I know I should be, and I know I need to. We're in that phase now where everyone's starting to go live on Facebook. Doesn't matter what it is. If it's Christmas time and kids are ripping out presents, we're going live. Shaky camera and all, we're going live. We're pushing the button. And then you've got people that are legitimately starting to create content and, create. You probably think about this a lot too, and I do. It's like, wow, everyone's creating a brand. Everyone's doing it right now, but not everyone has been doing it as long as I've been doing it, is what I say. I say it now on the podcast, but I don't go around preaching that. But I think to myself, yes, Sebastian, but the MySpace days back in 2005 are going to pay off dividends
for sure.
To people that are just jumping in the game to get it because it's the next thing that you should be doing. So, the late days of, LinkedIn was the first ones on the block, weren't they? Late 2004. So I was at LinkedIn, right into MySpace to Facebook, and then I figured how to monetize it with 2010. Well, 6 years later. I'm like, all right, I'm done screwing around on MySpace.
No kidding. Yeah, me too.
So, well, man, it's going to be an exciting year for you, dude. 2019, you're going to be booked. I say book up. So let's not wait till 2020. Let's get those 100 gigs booked this year.
Do it.
Going on here. The book's dropping. Press the damn button. For those of you tuning in here, you need to connect with my boy. He's social fans across just about every social platform out there. Very active on LinkedIn. Very active on Twitter, the Gram, Facebook. Got his podcast too. So make sure you connect with Brian Fanzo. Brian, it's a pleasure to be friends with you. It's a pleasure to be colleagues with you, man, and support you, be on the journey with you. And I'm fired up. I feel it in my gut that we're gonna figure something out here to be able to work together here.
Let's do it. Let's crush some stages together in 2019 for sure.
I'm absolutely bound to do it. All right, let's close things out with one final question, and that is: so you and I just got done crushing a large 10,000 person conference. I was the MC. You did a keynote and a couple breakouts. We're done. It's the last day, and by default, I'm making you go out and sip some fine bourbon and chug IPAs, which you have no problem doing. It's the end of the night. We're at the hotel bar for a nightcap, but we realize that the other bar across the way is still open, and that bar is doing karaoke. So I convince you that you and I are going to do karaoke, bourbon infused, IPA infused. What song are we singing?
What are we singing? It's like my personal go-to, which is hard to admit, is these boots are made for walking. That's literally my personal go-to. I can hammer out some there, but I have a feeling you and I would do some John Bon Jovi would
Living on a Prayer.
Living on a Prayer, I think, would have to be where we would go. We would run around. I mean, we are both we are loud, we're passionate, we talk fast, we're not afraid to put ourselves out there. I think Living on a Prayer would be where we end up.
Yeah, I'm down. Living on a Prayer. That's it. Done. Our first book gig together. We're singing karaoke. Damn it.
Let's do it.
Hey, thanks again for your time. Thanks again for tuning in, everybody here. Make sure you're following Brian. Stay in touch with him. You'll thank me later for being able to do so. We'll talk to you guys next time.
Cheers.
Hey, it's Sebastian again. Thanks so much for tuning into this episode of the Seb Rush Show on Social Buzz on Air. If you like what you hear, make sure you're subscribed to the show. This way you'll get notifications every time a new episode drops. Be sure to follow Brian. He's got great content. He's a good dude. He's iSocial Fans in most places on the internets and the social medias world. I'm Sebastian Rusk, signing off from our beautiful studio here in beautiful Miami. We'll talk to you next time.